database that delivers unmatched versatility, performance, scalability, and financial value for all of your cloud, mobile, on-premises, hybrid, distributed cloud, and edge computing applications. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Couchbase and Trescon, we thank you for attending this masterclass today. Today's discussion will be on reimagining data with NoSQL, and we'll be hearing some wonderful insights from an expert in the field, sharing real-world use cases and discussing the latest trends in NoSQL. I'm pleased to introduce to you our very esteemed speaker, Jeannie Wan, who's the head of field engineering APJ Couchbase. Well, today he will take us through topics such as why are so many businesses migrating their applications to NoSQL databases? Do you think it's the right move for your business? What are the benefits of a NoSQL database for businesses? Is NoSQL a good fit for your application? And what are some of the challenges of NoSQL, and how can Couchbase help you overcome these challenges? How can one scale my NoSQL database? He will also let you walk through the NoSQL architecture, SQL++ for JSON, and full text search, connect to and use SDKs, deploy fast and anywhere. Well, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let us begin the session and make the most of this fantastic opportunity to learn, network, grow, and we hope you all have a great one. If you have any queries, please feel free to use the Q&A tab. Over to you, Jeannie. Thank you so much for coming.
Fantastic. Thanks, Aisha. Good morning, everyone. Let me just share my screen and let's get started. Right, let me know when you can all see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome. And for the friends who are joining from outside Singapore, I'm hosting this session in Singapore. And for those who are joining from the rest of the ASEAN country, and special thank you for people who are turning up very early in the morning in India. All right, so let me just do a quick introduction of myself for those who don't know me. My name is Jeannie Yuan. I'm heading up the field engineering team for APAC in Couchbase. My background is always around data. This is how much I'm passionate about it. I start with my journey at enterprise and move into consulting and move into vendor. So I have done, different kind of data delivery project across the globe, mainly in Asia Pacific, in various of the industry. All right. So today I'm hope to share with you a lot of my learning and my insights about how we're gonna use the next generation data platform to deliver a different experience, a new experience on your enterprise application. Now, this is something about me. I would also like to know something about you. I'm putting a poll question on the sessions now, where I'm going to ask a little bit about you. So let's see how we're doing with that. So I'll give you probably about 30 seconds. If all of you can just use your mouse, your click on your phone, let me know a little bit about you so that I can actually tailor my conversation a lot better in that sense. Right? We have more than 60% people already filled up. Really appreciate it. I see a lot of people are coming from architect and developer. I've got a few DBA and some other IT professional. And I have a few of you guys are non-IT professional. So I try to explain things in a layman's term as much as possible, but feel free to ask questions along the way. Right, that's fantastic. Thank you. More than 75% of you guys are still awake. That's a very good sign. So, so this is a profile. Let me just quickly share with you. As I said, most of you guys are architect and developer. Welcome. Thank you. And yeah, so I will try to make this as interactive as possible. Now, also, another question I want to ask you, just very quickly, is how much you know about NoSQL? All right. So for the people who are very new to this area, I try to spend a little bit of time to explain to you what are NoSQL stuff as well. All right. If we have some experts here, bear with us today. We're still going to bring you some new knowledge, but that's going to be a little bit more fundamental stuff that we start with. And we have a handful of people only knows about the name, which is fine. I'm going to spend some time to talk about it, all right, to at least open the door for you so that you can come in and understand a little bit more about NoSQL. All right. Majority of the people I can see here, again, thanks for participation. More than 75% people have actually voted. That's very, very impressive. All right. Let me share that with you. This is your profile. This is the way how we get to know each other. So most of you guys know something, which is great. As I mentioned, a handful of you actually are very new to this area. All right, fantastic. Let me stop sharing and then come back to my session. So this is going to be the agenda for today, right? For the next 90 minutes, I think I took out the first 5 minutes, 85 minutes or so, we're going to go through this agenda. I'll give you an overview. More, for all of those who are new to NoSQL, I also want to, spend a little bit of time to explain, what that is. At the same time, I think it would be a very good idea to start with a demo, right? You seeing it and you believing it and you get excited, then we come into the architecture of Couchbase to help you to understand how we can actually make all of those things happen. And then we're going to, end with some use cases. And if we have time, we also give you a quick demo of Capella, what are the things that you can do straight away. And then we'll open the floor for, more questions. Now, again, along the way, in the past, there were a lot of questions, right? Feel free to drop them in, right? As soon as you have them, just put it there. I will try my best to address as many questions as possible. All right. All right, let's go. Right, overview. So forget about the technology for a second, right? Let's look at the landscape that we have today. For those one who were in the AWS Summit, I actually share with you quite a bit in terms of the user journey and user experience that we encounter today when we're pushing an application out in the market. So I think those time has gone where we can actually sit back, relax, take 12 to 24 months to deliver an application to the market. All right, those days are gone. We have to be on our toes. We have to deliver some very smooth user experience to the end user in a very fast pace, right? That means, normally the great experience comes with the characteristic of personalized, available everywhere. It's super fast, super interactive. And then on the other end, that asking us to do things a lot more smoother, a lot more faster. That requires us to use a tool that, is familiar to us, right? And when we actually deploy those options, and I think nowadays we still have, a handful of admin people here. They are actually working really hard on long hours to try to deliver and deploy all of those solutions in different kind of environments. And obviously, they also need to keep the lights on, asking them to keep, 99.99% and, 4.9 and 5.9, it become now an industry standard. In the AWS Summit Mumbai last week, I also saw 11.9, right? I don't know how crazy that will be, but, normally we're dealing with 4 and 5. And also, last but not least, I think it's only coming in this year, maybe in the last, 6 to 12 months. I saw a lot of conversation about cost saving because of the economy, because of all of those conversations about, hey, we're probably a little bit overspending, right? How can we optimize? So that is kind of what a modern application was asking for. Now, when that translated into a back-end technology, when we actually have a ask for a legacy need, which is traditionally, I guess people normally familiar with the databases, RDBMS database, right? For those one who are not familiar with NoSQL, NoSQL is a family. NoSQL have a few types. One is a document database, right? One is a graph database. One is a wide column database and, a key value store. So all of those are a family of NoSQL. When you actually hear about a NoSQL technology, normally that refers to one of those few, the 4 types that I mentioned. All of them have some similar characteristics. They are able to manage massive amounts of data and, massive concurrent user. Speed and performance are mostly linear, and you can scale them very, very easily. And you also have the flexibility not to worry about the schema, because use Couchbase as an example, we use JSON document to store the data. And as you may know, JSON is all about key value pair. Don't really care what you put in there. All right. So as long as it's in a key value pair format, we will be able to accept that. We're very different from the traditional RDBMS database that we have to actually use. We have to predefine the schema before we go. All right. Or every single time, I'm not sure how many of you actually experience, especially those developers. Every single time you need to change a schema. For example, it used to be, a timestamp. Now it needs to change to a different format. Or it used to be a varchar 25. Now it needs to be changed to a decimals, right? Vice versa. How much time that you need to spend with the, data modeler, right? And then they will tell you to wait, get the ticket, get in the line, right? A lot of change that need to happen, the testing needs to happen before you can actually make what you believe is a very simple change. So, but at the same time, all of those, what we call the legacy or RDBMS database, have its own good, right? For example, you can actually ensure your data consistency and integrity. And, the technology was developed to optimize the storage. So, storage efficiency is pretty good. Now, nowadays, when you are actually having a conversation together with your colleague, talk about, I need to build a new application. There is a constant debate about, hey, should we use the latest technology like, NoSQL, or should we actually continue using the RDBMS database? Right? I hear that a lot. Couchbase making a pretty bold claim here and say, hey, can we actually stop fighting but getting the benefits from both parties? All right. So I'll give you an example. You probably need a shopping cart experience on online shopping. You're going to have a lot of interactions, right? The shop to buy ratio is very, very high. I'm not sure your experience. My wife actually do a lot of, browsing on the catalog and put things in the cart and take them out. And she don't normally check out, right? The shopping cart get, filled up and get taken out and literally just sit there. And then one day, maybe a super sales or there is an occasion that she feel like doing a transaction, right? She may actually just go and select a few item and push that through. So she may actually have thousands of interactions with the apps, but only have one transaction towards the end. So as you can see, there is a need for both characteristics to be present in a solution. All right. So later on, I'm going to show you and, tell you a little bit more and how we actually handle this kind of situation. But before then, what I would like to do is I would like to have a experiment with all of you. So I got this QR code here, right? And I would like you to, scan this QR code. For those one who joining from a cell phone, please type in the URL below, right? This will actually give you a Couchmart, a web application. So Couchmart is now open for business. And what I would like you to do is put in your name and select a couple of items and push that through. Okay, so this is very important because I would like to see you actually will show you some very interesting characteristic of the backend database. Have you guys all get a chance to scan? Let's do that. Scan, I give you another 5 seconds. Scan or type in the URL. Thanks, Molly. Molly already put the URL onto the chat. You should see that already. All right, let's go. Okay, let me show you a slightly different page. Okay. All right, I got a different page now. So as you can see on the right-hand side, I got a couch mark. So for those one who came in late, couch mark is on 34.216.8.2, and then column 8080 is in the port. So I can actually see on the right bottom corner, this is where your order is. All right, so I will actually do the Genie one. Right, I feel a bit naughty today. And I'd like some butter, and then I would like to have some burger. Loved it, and then I submit. All right, so as soon as I hit submit, as you can see, all right, whatever I just select is down here. Now on the left-hand side, I have the backend database. So I just created this morning for this masterclass. So as you can see, there is a 3-node cluster sitting here. All right, dealing with the supporting with the application. I also have a secondary cluster at the moment is empty. All right, so in terms of the server, it's still got a 3-node cluster, but there is no buckets here. So secondary cluster is empty, but the primary cluster, if I come in here, Couchmap have a lot of items. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate some scenario, right? And on this Windows here, you can see there are 3 nodes, right, which is representing these 3 nodes here. I'll just put that in the visual. And, the bubble actually simulating the connectivities, right? So for those one who have not submitted, please continue submitting. And what I would like you to do is continue doing all that when I'm shutting one node down brutally. So I literally, what I would do is I come in the server, I'm going to shut down one of the nodes, okay? So when I click into one of the nodes here, all right, let me copy the address. Now I'm doing all of this live, okay? As you can all imagine what could possibly go wrong in a live demo, all right? So let's try this out. Let me bring up a window here. Terminal window. All right, what I would like to do, for those one who are not familiar with this whole thing, I'm trying to remote into a server, which I just passed in here. So which I would put in a password, if I know that correctly. All right, fantastic. I am in. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to shut down one of the nodes, okay? Now, before I do that, I will actually need to change some settings. So there is a setting here to say, hey, how much time do you actually want before we can fail over? Okay, I've set it 5 seconds because of the demo I want to do. So I save it. Okay, let me get back to the server here. And then I get back to the terminal. So in here, what I'm going to do is say, hey, system control, please stop Couchbase -server. Now, before I hit the enter button, I want to do something here as well. So this is fail over example. Okay. In this case, I need something a little bit more healthy. Bread, banana, get some ham, get some egg. Apple is fantastic. All right. So what I want to do is I want to stop it. And then you can actually see that visually, one of them is being stopped. And then Couchbase will be running as 2-node cluster. And then I hit submit. Okay. I want you to see that order get pushed through. That's the expected result. All right, let's try it. So let's hit enter. All right, straight away it detects it. Now on the visual, it also says, hey, warning, I got a problem here. Okay, internally, Couchbase actually start taking over and say, hey, I have some problem. Now, once it goes down, we've got 2 nodes. What I will do is I continue to submit. Okay, order goes through. Failover example, successfully done. So in this case, as you can see, 1 node goes down completely. Okay, I operated with 2 nodes at the moment. I was able to submit my application. All right, so my order is still gone through. So in this case, as you can see here, Couchbase is operating with 2 nodes at the moment, with 1 node goes down. 1 node goes down, operating with 2 nodes. Make sense? All right, so thank God, first one goes through smoothly. Now, this is actually happened quite a lot because nowadays database actually running, apart from you buying some very premium hardware, database running on commodity hardware. It's a matter of fact that Couchbase, Couch stands for cluster of unreliable commodity hardware. All right. So when we build this technology, we know we're going to put that on commodity. We know commodity is less reliable and, no failure for whatever reason. It could be network, could be hardware, could be software, doesn't matter what happened. We have that covered. Now, there is another scenario, what I want to show you. Well, let me just do the rebalance so that, it's continuing just running with 2 nodes without any problem. If you don't do rebalance, which is absolutely fine, actually, you can do rebalance example. Do that rebalance. All right, let's just do any random. Oh, I'm too slow. Sorry. I'm supposed to do this when rebalance is actually happening. Doesn't matter. We will do another rebalance later on. What I'm trying to show you is rebalance will happen all the time. Failover will happen all the time, but it will not actually impact, all right, your application, even though you have, some disaster. All right. So let me show you one thing. It's called another high availability test. Imagine that your entire node fell over. All right. Your entire cluster, your entire region goes down. You want this data to be available in another data center, or in a different scenario, you want to have active reads on, 2 different geolocation. Could be one in Singapore, one in India, the other one in EMEA. All right. So in this case, you need to transfer all of your database data into a different data center. Okay, so remember I have a secondary cluster, all right, and I have no buckets here. So what I will do is I will say, hey, I generate a backup one. Okay, I leave everything as default at the moment. Okay, I got a new bucket called backup mount. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to build a bridge between the primary and the secondary. Okay, so again, I will need to copy all the information here. Okay, and then coming here, we have the XDCR, right? And what we do is we add the remote and say, hey, that's the call. Let's call it destination. All right, this is the one that I just copy across. And then let's enable some connection, right? Remote cluster connection is made. And what we need to do now is to add some replication. Okay, so you need to select Couchmart from remote cluster, and here is the backup -mart. Okay. So obviously there are lots of settings that you can put in. All right, I'm not going to bother right now. I'll just say simply replicate. Now, before I do that, I just want to show you in the bucket, there's nothing here. All right. So let me just save that. Okay, starting up, it's replicating now. Right. So if I refresh this page here, it's really showing, some of the data has been moved from this cluster to the next one. So already got 11,092, and coming back to this bucket here, 11,092. All right. This is how simple that is to replicate all the data. Now, I want to show you that it's live. Now, let's examine. Let's go to the document itself. Let's find something, right? So let's just do show range. Let's look at orders. Oh, there we go. This products, not orders. So it's product. Let's go to, let's just say burger, right? So I got burger here. Right, the image is burger, the name is burger. Let's change that as hamburger. Okay, if I refresh this page, if you refresh yours, it should come up hamburger. There you go, hamburger is here. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to find some orders. Let's see if I can find my orders. Maybe order. There you go, order. There is no S. Fantastic. All right. So I can start finding the order here. Okay. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to do another. Say this is XDCR example. Okay. Obviously, if I actually put in order XDCR example, so if I do column, XDCR, there shouldn't be anything here. Okay, if I do that for Ginny, because I think I actually put in something, there you go, Ginny's here. All right, so now if I actually hit the submit button, as you can imagine, that will actually flow through very quickly. Okay, but at the same time, remember I built a bridge. I want to do this in the secondary cluster. Copy, and I'm coming to the document. Remember, this is the secondary, okay? Show range for the Ginny. Obviously, it will be here. Now, just bear with me because I set up the cluster in the US. So, just wondering why it is taking a little bit of time to respond. It's not the cluster, but the UI itself. Show range. Well, show me some documents. Okay. Oh, there you go. Finally. Thank you. It's time to come back. All right. So retrieve the document. All right. Gene is still here. Now, let me do this, and then I'll look for XDCR. Okay. XDCR. All right. Let's do that. Submit the order. All right. 5 meetings submitted. All right. Let's see. That comes up here. It should in a minute, and then I retrieve the document. I do XDCR example. It's not coming through just yet, is it? Okay, let me do one more time. I don't think it actually been accepted. XDCR2. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, we've got a lovely ham here. And let me just hit submit again. Order submitted. Okay, that's fine. I should see order submitted here in a second. Fantastic. There you go. XDCR2 example has come through with ham. Where's ham? Ham. Okay, remember this is secondary cluster. Is literally hit the primary and then come to the secondary straight away. Okay, so this is actually demonstrating to you that the data is hitting the first, and then you can quickly replicate that to another. Now, there are many, many use cases for that. You can simply imagine how you can actually use that for your upgrade, for a, active setup, for a disaster recovery, switching from one cluster to another. And you also can use that to replicate the data from production down to non-production for any kind of testing. All right. So it's one of the very, very cool features. Now, at the same time, what I want to do is I want to show you another very interesting thing to say, remember, everyone talks about NoSQL, all right? The expectation is we don't use SQLs anymore. But Couchbase says, no, that's wrong because you actually invest so much time into SQL, right? This is a capability you brought up. Let me bring that capability back to the table. So you're going to see a SQL engine sits on top of a document database where we're going to help you to run some SQL, okay? So I have a spare node here, right, which I'm going to add in. So I'm coming back to the primary. Oh, one more thing I want to just quickly highlight before we go there. Remember, this is a 3-node cluster in a secondary. I'm not sure that you are aware there's only 2 nodes here, okay? So XDCR will be able to help you to replicate the data regardless of the topology of the cluster that we have. All right, it literally will just replicate. As simple as that. All right, and you can have different versions in between. No problem. Couchbase will take care of that. Anyway, all right, let's go back. And here, what I will do is I will add a server. Okay, I got a spare node, which I'm going to put in. Okay, and I need to put in the password, obviously. Now, in this one, what I'm going to do is I say, hey, I'm going to put index and query services into it. Okay, and obviously we can do some other stuff as well, but I just want to show you index and query. And today I think I'll only have time to show you that. And actually we can do a lot more in terms of search and analytics and eventing and do backup and things like that. But let's just start with the index and query services. Okay, there are some settings you need to put. I'll probably just stay with all of things in default. Okay, and hit rebalance, and we'll actually finish in a few seconds. Now you have 2 data nodes, okay, and you have 1 query and index node. So in this case, you can come down here and you can actually see query and index now is working. Okay, so what I will do first is adding an index. All right. In this case, I'm just creating a index. So now, if you don't create index, what's going to happen is Couchbase will prompt you. There's no index here, right? So actually, let's do the other way around. So let's just try to run a query here for you. So query editor, let me just run a query. So as you can see the query here, select count, all right, excuse me. We're looking at the order as products and from count type equal to order, all right, and then group by product count 1. So this is a SQL language that you're probably very familiar with. Let's go and execute that. Now, it will actually prompt you and say, I do not have an index, buddy. All right, so there is no index. The query requires an index. Okay, so what you can do is you can come here and say, hey, tell me what index I need to create. So it will tell you and say, hey, please create this index on Couchmart or order where type equal to order. This is very specific for this one here. Okay, then let's just build this. Okay, build this index now. Now, so if you come down here, you should have this index being built. If you come back to the query, execute it again. and you got that. For each of the product, how many order have we got? Right? The most favorite one is burger. Oh, thank you. Someone actually sharing the same love. All right, the product is burger. Fantastic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create another index, and obviously I gamed that a little bit by have the program, the application that can actually take care of have features that can actually take care of some of the index here. So let me come in here and let me just create an index on category. So in this case, I can just create that. Okay, so this is now done. What I can do is I can say, hey, dear Couchmart, please check different stock. So update, you can see it now. I do an update statement, set stock equal to 10, category equal to drink. Okay, so I execute that. Okay, that is also done. And now I can actually say, hey, I want a slightly different price. Okay, so you can do something like this, right? Price equal to 0.8. Give everyone a 20% off. Now this will actually go back to edit the document, right? All of the price will now be 80% of the original one, right? So execute that. Okay, it actually says you need a index to create. Again, what we'll do is we can actually create index. Because I don't have the type, let me just create for the specific type for now and cover all of them. Okay, let me just execute that. Okay, and then I come back to my history and I'm going to execute this again. All right, job done. Now, as you can see, I'm not sure you're paying attention to it. On the right-hand side, as I told you, I gamed it a little bit because the program itself will automatically pick up if I actually have a category. Now, if I click this, I can actually only show meat, and now I have basic, right? I show some drinks, some snacks, right? This actually help you to, do your application a lot more easy. All right. Again, coming back down here, you can see another node has been added. That was the index node that we have. All right. So again, this is actually very, very interesting technology that you are seeing that have capability to handle multiple situations with failover, with adding nodes. Again, I'm not sure whether you are aware, when you're adding nodes, you don't need to shut down your application. Your application is still working. You're taking out nodes, same thing. All right. So a lot of those things are still working. The database in the past 40 minutes have not gone down, even though we actually had a lot of database administrative actions. All right. Let me just pause here. I'm not sure whether there is any questions in the chat. So I guess not, then I'll probably will continue. Feel free to drop all of those questions in the Q&A or in the chat. We'll take care of that. Okay, so let's just pause the demo here. Let's go back. So by seeing all that, let me come back to tell you what Couchbase is. Couchbase is actually a multi-model support ANSI SQL. And also you can actually see the cluster is distributed, right? You've got a 3-node cluster and it's super high performance. As soon as you actually put something in, it will drop down into the application. On the order, you can see that pick it up straight away. When I actually change the document, it reflects onto the application straight away. When you actually turn on the XDCR, build a bridge to connect to another cluster, you drop an order, right? The data gets synced to the secondary cluster. Right? All that because we have a very, very cool managed cache stay on top of that. So high performance. We show you the replication as well. And you can actually deploy them in the cloud to the edge. Now, one thing we don't have time to talk about is the offline first mobile today. All right. But for those ones who are interested, we have different masterclass to run the mobile, offline first mobile. But let me just quickly describe that for you in the next minutes or so. Right. Imagine this. This is actually an example that I use for the AWS Summit in Mumbai. In the session, we have a device to scan batch, right? The device actually talks to the network and store the data real time back into the server. But as you can imagine, we have a couple of thousand, almost like 5,000-6,000 people there using the network and, using the 4G and the Wi-Fi network. So it's very, very busy. So very frequently, after you scan the badge, you can actually see the dial is actually going around. Now, what happens if you actually put Couchbase in all of those devices? Couchbase have a light version, which is called Couchbase Lite. It's a lightweight, full-feature NoSQL database you can embed into your edge device. It could be any mobile devices, it could be tablet, it could be a PC, it could be any kind of IoT devices, right? That will act as a storage and a compute engines on the mobile devices to compute at the edge. So what that means is you can store data locally on your device. Whenever you have available slots in the network or resume and network gets better, it will push the data automatically back into the cloud database, right? But again, today we don't have time to deep dive into the details, but I just want to let you know we have something like that integrated fully into the suite as well. If you're interested, right, please watch this space. We have a masterclass for mobile in coming months. So a little bit about the company. We are established as a public company. We went public not last year, it's the year before now. And we actually have now close to 900 people, and we're serving people, our customer all around the globe. Obviously, are working very closely with a lot of hyperscaler, the cloud partner, right, and a lot of FSI, global GSI as well. So there are very various of reasons people come to Couchbase. One is based on the performance, and I think we also talked about the flexibility, right? Mobile, I briefly mentioned, and also at the beginning, I talk about in the past, 6 to 12 months, the TCO conversation is actually very, very popular. And from a use case perspective, we have a lot of legacy offload or speed up, right? And a lot of people using us for product catalog, personalization. Customer 360 is another very, very popular one, given the fact that, you have a lot of enterprise have lots of different systems they built over time. The data they have about the customer are stored all over the place. So having a NoSQL database to try to consolidate that is probably one of the best solutions I see in the market, rather than using an RDBMS that you need to predefine all of those schema where you don't know how the customer data is stored, right? And obviously there are other, use cases like operational analytics, right? You can put Couchbase to run analytics against your operational data without impacting, the performance of your operational application. So a few examples here. LinkedIn actually start with us on a Oracle caching. All right, so we actually put Couchbase in front of Oracle, take care of 95% of the LinkedIn read process. There's more than 10 million requests coming in every single second, right? And globally, we have more than 800 million users and performance. And you can tell, I don't need to tell you how good the performance is. So every single time you hit, any action to read your information, to do search, to pull out information, Couchbase are, doing the work behind the scene. And FICO is another example. 65% of the global credit card transactions are scanned through by FICO, and Couchbase are there to help with that process. Obviously, we play in more than one industry, more than one. All of those industry highlights here, we actually work with the industry leader, and our application works as a mission critical, runs their mission critical application. It's not just like, hey, RDBMS, you guys run critical. NoSQL, you guys are sidekick. It's actually the fact that we are actually running the mission critical application to support the business. So I will give you a few more examples towards the end, but let's focus on something that you might be very interested to see, which is the next stop, architecture. All right. We have a question. Oh, good morning. Thank you for asking. Good very morning back to you. All right, so let's look at the architecture here. While most of the people talking about application, the view is very simple. The application sits on top of a database that runs on some kind of infrastructure. That is the fundamental, this is the fundamental. However, when coming down to reality for a lot of enterprise, this is a little bit more complicated. So if you think about what we just said in terms of the requirement from the apps, you probably will think, you know what, I need more than just a database and just a data platform, a function behind the scene. I probably need something a little bit more. Think about that application I just talked about. You probably need a database to store data to intercept with the application. You probably need a caching layer on top of that to make sure that it's fast enough. And then you probably need some search capability, right? And then if you want to go different location, you probably need a geo-replication capability. Some tool comes with that, some tool may not. And you need to have some query capability. And if there is a business rule that needs to be established, that you probably need some eventing capability and, on top of that, analytics, et cetera, et cetera. For argument's sake, you probably need at least 3 to 4 technology, all right? In the past, it seems to be okay because, when all of those technology was built, we have compute and, storage constraint. So we have to build our technology stack in such way. Then the challenge should become, how are you going to integrate all of those things together, right? An RDBMS database with a NoSQL, with a caching, with full text search. Integration, if you think integration is hard, consistency on scalability, consistency on HA is even harder, right? Think about how you're going to make RDBMS in the same consistency on scalability with full text search and the caching and the NoSQL. Because if you don't have the same consistency, the weakest link become your bottleneck, right? So with all of those in play, you're going to face a number of different challenges on the integration side, on the operational side, and on the cost side, right? The cost of all infrastructure, managing all of those licenses, the cost of integrating, the cost of training people, the cost of managing all of that, and time to market to look at the support and all of those aspects as well. So what's the solution? Couchbase says, we can provide you with an integrated platform, can support all of those capabilities, aim to provide the quickest turnaround time so that you can bring your your application to the market. That's the intent, all right? So as I mentioned before, nowadays it's all about iteration, time to market, MVP, push that out, because we don't even know whether that feature is going to, be accepted by our customer. Therefore, I think you may actually want to focus your energy on the business logic and the function and the application function itself, rather than spending a lot of efforts coming down to manage the backend database and trying to do the integration and so on and so forth. So for the rest of 30 minutes or so, what I will do is I will go to each of the characteristics and try to help you to understand the good thing that you saw in the demo and how do we achieve that from an architectural standpoint. So I got some questions here. Will Couchbase be able to support real-time analytics with visual tools like Tableau and Power BI? The simple answer is yes. We have native connectors to those visual tools that you can actually plug that in. So later on, let me explain that to you, how we can actually ensure that is not going to impact our operational functions. Another question is a native Angular and Flutter developer. Fantastic. What's the price comparison between Couchbase and Firebase, right? So I think we need to get you a deeper conversation about price comparison, right? Because it is a very different pricing model. Okay, Couchbase do not charge Couchbase Lite, but we charge sync gateway as an example. So that means we don't actually care how much Couchbase Lite you install on the edge device. We only charge you when you start syncing your data. So that means your inactive user will not be charged. They are not syncing the data, they will not be charged. So we charge on the sync gateway. We're looking at the capacity of what a sync gateway can do. Every single node of sync gateway is capable of managing more than 10,000 concurrent users to be talking to a single device. I'm talking about a single node, 2-core, 4 gig of memory, a very, very small node. Okay. But again, price question will actually come down to a deeper conversation, depends on the load. Second question, develop social media platform, use follower list I have in array. Each post I add a user ID, hashtag in array. In Firestore, use array contains any filter. Have array contain limits maximum 30. Consider my follower list is more than 30. In Couchbase can do. Yes, I believe we can, but I need to dig deeper and get back to you on that particular one. Okay, so I take a note on that. I will get back to you offline with exactly how we can do that. Okay. Thanks for that question. All right, so let me come back to the Couchbase one. First of all, we're flexible. All right. Again, for those one who are new to Couchbase, let's have a look. Your RDBMS, you are very familiar with tables. All right. Couchbase don't have a concept of table. Couchbase have a concept of a document. So in each of the rows, right, in your table, you can see that as a document that we're collecting data in the key value pair. But at the same time, you can actually combine some of those information into the same JSON document as well. So remember, the third normal form that we are familiar with today is actually, when you talk about that with a normal, ordinary people, they felt very, very strange. We learned that because our technology had a compute and storage constraint when it was first built about half a century ago. All right. So if you actually ask an ordinary person when they want to store the data, it's probably more native using the JSON format. So we have to give you the flexibility to store the data in a very different format, which is more closer to how a human can interact. And your application, when they interact with that, they will be a lot happier because of the flexibility they have. They don't need to define the schema, and also the way how they can actually understand the data structure as well. So in this case, it will be less joined, faster performance. At the same time, as I mentioned before, because the platform is fully integrated, you can actually get to the market a lot faster. You can innovate a lot faster. And you saw what I just did. If I need a query services, what I did, I pull up a new node, I add it in, right? It takes me 2 minutes to do. It will be even faster if I actually use the DBaaS offer in Capella, right? I don't even need to get a node prepared. You just click a few buttons, it will actually bring up a node from a cloud provider, and will take care of the rest at the background for you. Same thing for search, same thing for analytics, same thing for eventing, same thing for all of those capabilities that you see on the page. You don't need to manage that separately. So also you can actually do deploy options, right? So you can use Capella, our database, as a service that you can use today, or you can actually go to do a self-manage, either in the cloud, all right, or on your own data center. You can even use Kubernetes to do that. So we have a plugin called Autonomous Operator, Couchbase Autonomous Operator, which is a plugin of Kubernetes, so that you can use that to manage a stateful database with Kubernetes, which is pretty cool. And on mobile, as I mentioned before, you can deploy that into an IoT devices. You can actually set up multi-tier structure architecture to support different needs. There are some very cool examples that we can share with you later on. Again, if you want to know a little bit more about mobile, join our mobile masterclass later on. But we have very flexible deployment option across the board. Couchbase, as I mentioned to you before, you saw that firsthand, right? How we're going to run SQL with some other technology, NoSQL technology out there. You need to learn a new query language, where with Couchbase, you either use your SDK or you use SQL. I'll give you 2 seconds to find out the differences between a relational SQL and a Couchbase SQL++. If you cannot find any difference, that's correct, because there's no difference between the one that we're showing here. Obviously, the reason we call SQL++ is because we're adding additional functions into the SQL, then such as we are able to leverage the search index that you built, right? We can actually call those indexes. Now, we also support NC transactions. That means we can do begin transaction. You have a bunch of updates and insert statements, and you can do a rollback and a commit command at the end, right? So that's actually pretty powerful. And at the same time, in order for us to make it very, very smooth in terms of the experience from RDBMS to migrate into Couchbase, we actually map the schemas into the relational one. So in relational database, you normally need to do, when you do a query, you do database.schema.table, right? At the same time, in Couchbase, you can do bucket.scope.collections. So when we come back in here, can you see, CRM.activities, right? So this is actually your schema.table. You can actually do database.schemas.table, and Couchbase will have bucket.scope.collections. Okay, so that's how it works. So I saw a question in the chat to say, how easy is that to migrate existing SQL data over to Couchbase Server? The data itself is absolutely straightforward, right? It takes about 5-10 minutes, depends on how much data you have, because we have the one-to-one mapping. The challenge is actually never about the data. The challenge is always around the stored procedures All right. So I don't know how many store procedures you have, how many trigger, how many all of those functions that you have with SQL Server or MySQL or Oracle as an example. All right. So we need to look at that case by case, but data, easy, right? The data can come across very, very easily. It can be done within a day end to end, right? And the setup will take you about, a couple of minutes. All right. Also, there's another question here. Can I say JSON format is the denormalized version of tables? Short answer, yes, but at the same time, depends on how you denormalize it. Okay, so, but yes, simple answer is yes. Oh, also, let me just also call out, there are some user-defined function that we can do here as well. All right. You have stored procedures and triggers in the RDBMS database. We have user-defined function and eventing, right? With that, you can smoothly transition from your relational database into Couchbase. Okay, performance. Performance, one of them very, very important. And normally people ask what's Couchbase superpower, right? We are fast. So the report on the right-hand side is one of my favorites because it's not done by Couchbase. This is actually done by a third party. When we actually, ship out the information, we can share that with you as well. So this graph here actually shows throughput and latency. Okay, the bar representing the throughput, you want them to be as high as possible because that represents how much concurrent user you can take. The latency, the dotted line represent the latency. You want that to be as low as possible. Okay, so we actually compare against Capella with Atlas from Mongo and Datamon from AWS, and you can see the throughput that we are looking at. The replication part, I think we actually give you a very, very quick demo. The recap for that is you can do either as a single direction, or we'll call a unidirectional replication, or you can do a bi-directional replication. As you can see, there's an active row here. We can sync regardless of the version of Couchbase that you have. We can sync regardless of the topology that you have, as long as you have internet connections, or even better, a dedicated line, right? HDCR will work really, really well. At the same time, we have a sync-gateway sync. Okay, that sync is designed for low throughput and high latency kind of synchronization. So normally that means a 4G or 5G network across the board, and with the Couchbase Lite that you install on your Couchbase devices, you can do a peer-to-peer sync. As long as there is a connectivity, it could be Bluetooth, it could be Wi-Fi, it could be NFC, your IoT device can talk to each other, all right, without a data center or sync gateway. So that's another very cool use case. So we get the synchronization part taken care of by XDCR and the sync gateway. So this is another very important and interesting concept. You saw the high availability in the demo. Okay, how do we do that? How did we actually make sure that there is nothing impacting? When we take out one node. So first of all, let's talk about how Couchbase store data. Okay. Unlike some other architectures, a master-slave architecture, Couchbase have a single node type, share nothing architecture. That means when you try to store the data into Couchbase rely on the SDK. The SDK that you have within your application server contains a client library with a cluster map. Okay, so for argument's sake, that you have 10,000 records to be stored. The 10,000 record will be distributed evenly across the 3 node cluster that we have. That is called the auto sharding. Okay, so auto sharding. The sharding means distribution of the data. So Couchbase put all those 10,000 records into a bucket. Each of the bucket will divide it into 1,024, and it's always 1,024 virtual buckets. So those virtual buckets get evenly distributed into 3 node cluster. So each of the node will have 300 and something virtual buckets. So now you have a new piece of information you want to put in, okay? And there is a hash algorithm to calculate and say this particular data will be stored in whichever, based on the hash algorithm on a key, it will store in, for example, V bucket 312. Okay, 312, according to the cluster map, it will store in node number 1. So in this case, application will look at the cluster map and say, yep, I know if I want to store this data or if I want to read this data, I will go directly into node number 1. In this case, you have the shortest possible path to get to node number 1 to retrieve the data. Okay, so now when data get written into Couchbase, Couchbase will do 2 things. Number 1, Couchbase will replicate the data into a different node. At the same time, Couchbase will persist that data into the disk. Okay, so that's why you see, even though when you actually take out one node, right, Couchbase will continue operate, because in that case, Couchbase will activate the replicate node of node number 2. All the replicates of that node will now become active. At the same time, Couchbase will inform your SDK to update the cluster map. So from an application standpoint, the operation remains the same. I will go to my SDK to ask for where should I actually go to talk to if I want to get a update or insert. In this case, it's no longer node number 2. It could be node number 1 or node number 3. So it gets taken care of. Right? So once you do rebalance, and we will actually taking care of that node and say now Couchbase will run over 2 nodes, we will shuffle the things around and we will actually make the replicate of the original replicate, which now becomes active. All right. So we will shuffle some of those activities around and make sure that you are getting ready for the next failover. Right. Obviously, with 2 node cluster, and if you only have 1 copy, and obviously you won't be able to sustain another lots of nodes. But if you imagine that you have 10 node cluster, you have 2 copies of data. When you actually shuffle them around, and you can still, take care of the second node failure, or after the rebalance, you have 9 nodes, and then you can actually take care of another node failure after rebalance. Okay, and obviously when the node comes back, all right, cluster map will also get updated. Rebalance will take care of, remove the duplication. Or if the node that you're taking out temporary, it will actually do what we call a delta sync. So because it still have data intact, it could be just underlying infrastructure issue or network issue. Now the node is being put back. Couchbase will check and see how much data you have. Will actually do the delta sync based on the time that you're missing from actions. So all of those are taken care of very, very intelligently, and rebalancing works really well at the background without impacting any of those capabilities that you have serving your application. All right, with that, the TCO conversation, as I mentioned, is always very, very interesting. Over the years, I think application developers find a way to scale the application linearly, but the database wasn't. So what Couchbase does is actually help you to scale out in a linear fashion as well. So how we can actually do that is we use what we call the workload isolation, or MDS, multi-dimensional scaling. Obviously, you can put all of your services on a single node, right? As an example, you saw that in the secondary cluster. Let me show that to you again. If you have a secondary cluster, you have data, query, index, search across all of those nodes. Or you can actually have what we have in this first server. You have data in a dedicated node and query and index in a second set of nodes. Okay. Obviously, it can be just indexed by itself, and then you can actually have query sit on its own. Doesn't really matter. Okay. But key thing here is to have that capability coming back. Now, the advantage of that is, for example, you have a special event next week, right? And you know that the volume of the inquiry, the volume of reads is coming through the roof. And what you can do in this case, you can actually update you expand, you scale out your indexing query and leave the data unchanged. Vice versa. If you actually have requirement to store more than 2 years of data, for example, today you store 2 years of data, all in a sudden you were asked to do 4 years of data. And what you need to do is scale out your data and keep the rest of them unchanged. At the same time, you are able to see all of the hardware configuration just by itself. Data in this case is a lot more memory intensive, right? So it needs a lot more memory, and query, on the other hand, is a lot more CPU intensive, as you may understand why it come in and try to break down the query and then try to assemble the data together and then bring it back to you. So that is a lot more CPU intensive. So you can actually set different sets of hardware for your query or your data in this case. All right, I hope that makes sense to you. And also with everything that we have, I guess all of you guys are coming pretty new. Before Couchbase 7.1, you have to use at least 10% of the memory into the mix. But with 7.1, with basically everything that you get right now, you can go all the way down to only 1% of the memory. So if your application does not have a very aggressive performance requirement, you can actually bring the memory ratio all the way down to 1% and you can still use Couchbase as an example. So this comparison is very beneficial for people who came across with the older version of Couchbase into a new one where they like Couchbase, but they don't think it actually makes sense because they don't have a very aggressive performance requirements. Now Couchbase 7.1 onwards can actually help. All right, to summarize, you actually see Couchbase capability with integrated RAM, okay? And then with full text search capability alongside with SQL++, and you are able to replicate the data across the board. And as workload isolation we just mentioned about, and I saw there was a question, I'm coming back to address that. I think it's to do with the workload isolation. And obviously cloud agnostic, you can actually deploy into any of the cloud. You can have one in the cloud, one back into your data center, and then, run it into different modes. And obviously very important, we have our offline first mobile, which we are not having time to talk about today. But again, if you are very interested, we can, go through that in the mobile masterclass. And Anand, and I got your question, I will get back to you on that one. So let's have a look at another question. When you say analytics, what kind of matrix it provides? I think we're actually talking about two different concepts here. So analytics, we are referring here, is the analytics of the data that you store, not the analytics of the platform. So if you're referring to the analytics of the platform, we do actually have some matrix that you can actually monitor your platform performance. If you come to the dashboard, as an example, all right, you can actually have a cluster view or services view, and then you can actually have different kind of matrices that you can pull across, all right? And then you can actually obviously looking into different kind of services that you can actually pull and say, hey, what's my index performing? That kind of matrices that we provide to manage the cluster. Now, in terms of analytics, which I don't have a note here, which I can put in another note for analytics. So what happened, let me see how I can answer the question. Okay, let me just quickly jump to this slide here, because I think this will help to explain the scenario a bit better. 1 second. Yes. Right. So this is another slide that actually tells you how all of those components that is stitched together, right? So there is a very important internal protocol called DCP. This is an in-memory message bus that we actually push all of the data from data services. It sees every single mutation. So any changes happening on the data services, it captured by DCP. Now, then it actually pushed to different services, coming down to analytics services. And, you can actually establish a link into data services. Every single mutation that actually happened, analytics services will pick that up. And all the data will be stored in a MPP database. So the things in here is a MPP database, and this is a document database. So for those of you who did analytics a lot, you know that the MPP database are very good at columnizing the data, and then we do analytics and ad hoc queries and things like that. So in this case, if you have someone runs a stupid query against the analytics database and bring that down, your operational database is still intact and continue serving your application. And that's how we can actually take care of the workloads if you have different requirements for analytics. I hope that answers your questions. All right, so we only got probably about 10 minutes or so left, and let's focus on come down to some use cases, as I promised you. So I think we actually talk about LinkedIn, which is using Couchbase to speed up the legacy. So I'm not going to go through that again. But here, key takeaway is the latency, 4 milliseconds, and 10 million concurrent queries. And we have another one which is used for user session and profile with the games, right? So this particular customer is actually in APAC region in Korea, and they actually using not only Couchbase but using Couchbase as a database as service. We actually help them to deploy into new region in 20 minutes. Right, and all of those are done through XDCR as well as the capability that we have. And at the same time, we give them the SQL capability, and they leverage the JSON model. And another one with the Cannibal. Cannibal actually has a very interesting use case. Again, pulling all of the data into Customer 360. They have a Couchbase installed on their cruise ship, right? And then the cruise ship can actually send the data to the centralized database when they're selling near shore, right? We have the multi-tier sync gateway can actually help them to sync the data from the cruise ship all the way to the central data warehouse, not data warehouse, but database. And then another one is using the product catalog, right? Amadeus. This is, again, super high throughput with about 50 million ops per second, with 99% of them is less than 2.5 million milliseconds response time. So huge amounts of data, helping them with the catalog. For those ones who are not familiar with Amadeus, they provide the ticketing information for flights. So if you go to, Skyscanner, or you go to any of the booking.com, you search for flight, Amadeus engines works at the back to provide all of those information, matching with the availability on the flight, to the pricing, to the seat availability, to the user profile, etc., etc. Another one, this is actually a very interesting one. Louis Vuitton, if you go into any of the LV store, you can see they have no computer. They only have iPads. So they use our peer-to-peer function to synchronize the stock level within the store. So they broadcast a local network, and then they actually exchange those information at the database level, not require any database engine that runs in the store. So one of them is actually acts as the master to send the data back to the central warehouse, and then the rest of the tablets will be talking to each other at the back end to synchronize the stock level. And analytics. Domino Pizza actually use that operational analytics, the one that I just shared with you. So they actually use that to get some real-time insights about how they can improve the performance on their marketing campaigns and things like that. All right. So again, the key here is to do operational analytics without impacting their day-to-day. There is no ETL, right? You just make a link. And because we're super fast, we can actually take care of all of that. Again, it's a trading. What do you want to trade? You use a little bit more compute to trade against the time that you have, and then you can make real-time decisions. It's a matter of fact that every single time you see ETL in your slides, in your solution, everything runs on a batch mode, right? You cannot actually run real-time with ETL. Last but not least, there are actually many customers like this, Facet Digital. They actually use more than one capability of Couchbase. All right, they're using query, they're using geocache, geo-replication, they're using caching. As I mentioned before, nowadays when you want to build an app, there are multiple capabilities that you need to bring to the table, and many organizations like Facet Digital are using more than one capability of Couchbase. And in this case, we are able to reduce the footprint of other technology in the stack. As an example, we did a lot to replace the RDBMS and Mongo plus Redis combination, or Mongo plus Redis plus an RDBMS plus Elastic. So all four of them can be replaced by a single Couchbase database. Let me look at the Q&A here. Happy to know that Couchbase work on .NET. Yes, it does actually SDK .NET. Any demo for mobile SDK? Unfortunately, not for today. We literally run out of time and we don't have time spare for that. But I can actually share with you very quickly where you can find some information, and then I will get back to you on some of those questions you asked as well. Okay. Capella, database as a service, fully managed. I'm not going to bore you with all of those slides, but I'll probably just quickly show you what that looks like. Okay, so let me just bring up a new window. Let's go cloud.couchbase.com. And obviously you can sign up, right? I got an account that I can do single sign on. That is Couchbase Field Engineering Team. Okay, so this is Capella. All right, so what you need to do is actually come in to create a database and say, hey, I want to use one of those provider. Okay, I select my region, say Singapore. All right, give a name. And again, coming down here, as I mentioned before, you can chuck everything there, or you can separate them. Okay, so I can do a data, do analytics, no problem, and I do an index plus query, right? And what I need to do, just come down and hit create database. One thing to know is we actually put all of those nodes across different availability zone by default. You can choose to put them into the same AZ to avoid any data transfer cost, but if that AZ goes down entirely, your data will be gone. Multiple AZ will give you the flexibility and capability to handle a single AZ failure. So for example, in Singapore, for AWS, we have 3 data centers. If one data center go out of power, as an example, Couchbase will continue running if you select the multi-AZ capability. And what you need to do, just hit create database. Okay, it will take care of that at the background and will provision a database for you. And it normally takes another couple of minutes and the database will be done. Okay, now this is not a Capella specific workshop, but I just want to share with you what are those features. But at the same time, there are a few other things that I want to share with you in Couchbase website. So first of all, there is something that you need to learn if you want to know about learning Couchbase. If you hit on the Academy, right, on the Learn, and you can actually see this. There is some free courses that you can actually take. For each of the track, developer, architect, and admin, there are associate courses that are free. So my suggestion to you is for the next couple of weeks, right, you come down to pick one of them, any one of them, right? Use the same email as you registered for today's sessions. Okay, so that we can track it, so that we know it's you. Okay, after you've done that, we're going to run a follow-up session, which will be with a much smaller group, the group who are interested in learning Couchbase. Let me share that with you. We want to do that so that you can actually learn a little bit more about Couchbase. So we've got a masterclass today. Pick up that self-paced training in 4 weeks. And then we do another follow-up session with you to talk about best practices and certification prep. If you attend all of those 3 sessions, I'm going to give you a free exam voucher, right? Key thing is use the same email to sign up for everything so that we can track it. And then if you do all 3, I give you a free exam voucher. At the same time, do Capella trial anytime you want. Join our community anytime you want. Okay, so this is a way how you join our community. There is a Discord that you can join. There are hundreds of developers and architects like you from Couchbase and from the community. We'll be able to answer some of your questions. All right, and obviously, Capella trial, sign up, 30-day free trial you can use. When you're going through the self-paced training, you will need a Capella cluster that's on the free trial, right? If you've done all of those with the single email ID, come to us. We'll give you a voucher for free for examinations. Okay, so I think that's the offer we have of now. And let me see whether we have any other questions. Obviously, we're going to send you with all of those information. And just letting you know that we are expanding. It's more than AWS and Google now, as well as also on the map. We're going to update this and send it to you. Any other questions? Right, this cloud has been a little bit quiet, but thanks for the questions along the way. And as I mentioned before, join the Discord. You're going to see many people like you active in the community, helping to answer some of the question use cases, and join Academy. All right, I think that's very important for you to pick up Couchbases. And yeah, Thank you. And over back to you, Ashley.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the masterclass, and it's been a truly inspiring day for each one of us, I believe, as those were some thought-provoking insights on what makes NoSQL ideal for modern applications. And now, on behalf of everyone, it's indeed my pleasure to make a few closing remarks and express gratitude to all those who made it to the virtual masterclass today. First off, I would like to thank our very esteemed speaker, Jeannie Wan, for the time and effort taken to share his deep knowledge and experiences throughout the masterclass today. Today's event explicitly highlighted how to get more out of your NoSQL database. And thus, I thank Couchbase for taking this opportunity to enlighten us with their rich experiences. On that note, thanking each one of you all for attending the virtual masterclass. It was a pleasure hosting you all here. Please enjoy the rest of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Stay safe. Cheers. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.